We are back with a woman who wrote her first book at age 78, and it's about being selfish. We have with us Jane Wyker. Wonderful to have you with us today, Jane.
Nice to be here, Sandy.
Okay, I'm looking at you. I'm seeing you are not 80 years old.
Yes.
Okay, now this is a trick I heard. If you say you're older than you are, then people go, dang, she looks great for, you know. Instead of saying you're younger, they go, oh, you look crap at 50, you know, whatever. So but you really are 80. In fact, happy birthday next week. You'll be 81.
Yes, yes.
Wow, okay, so you wrote a book, Soul Selfish, 2 years ago.
Yes.
Your first book, so far your only book, at 78. Why did you decide to write a book at 78, Jane? What'd you want to get out there?
Well, I've been into my inner process now for 46 years. And it was my work life to be in family counseling and parent education and corporate work. And I just wanted to keep sending it out to wider and wider audiences, because to me, the inner life is the source of happiness.
Well, and this is a thing you write about your own journey in this book, and it has everything to do with being soul selfish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, soul selfish to me means self-love.
Ah.
You know, when most people think about selfish, they think about someone wanting something from another person without regard for the other person. But when you're in your soul, you're connected to every other soul. So being soul selfish is good for me, and it will be good for you too.
So this is kind of a universal message then, really.
Yes. Yes,
I mean, obviously that's why you wrote Soul Selfish. Well, and we were talking about selfish, and Ayn Rand is a great favorite of ours. You said you've read her too, and you know, she had the virtue of selfishness, and she said the same thing. Selfishness, if you don't take care of yourself, if you're not aware of yourself, you can't give to others. You cannot be of any use or caring about others if you don't care about yourself.
Well, what happens is that as children, we're all dependent. That's the nature of childhood. And so we look outside for love, and we begin to accommodate our parents and our teachers in whatever way we think they will love us. So there are all kinds of roles. I chose good girl. And a good girl was just a person who gave and was obedient and did everything that was expected so that I would receive the love.
You want that, and I love that. The subtitle is The Awakening of a Good Girl, and I started reading your book. It's fascinating. I can't hardly put it down. It's interesting because I read a lot of books, but you really have done a great job with this, and your story's interesting. I love the part where you, for 10 years with your first husband, you sat behind a post to watch the games that you would go to, you know, the professional games, and you never thought to say, let's trade off on seats or anything.
And neither did he. But a lot of that was the culture of the time, so that we are influenced not only by our parents, but the times we live in. And at that time, it was just, that's how it was. Right. And women weren't working as much, and it was just a very different world.
Well, true, and you're thinking, you know, being kind to him, oh, well, he cares more about the game or whatever, but that's just a small example, you know, of being, you know, of this journey. So how did you get from a good girl who just gave and didn't really take care of yourself at all, or think about that?
Or took care of everyone else.
Yeah, because you had 4 children.
Yes.
Too. So how did you get to this soul selfish place?
Well, I had this trip with him. He retired and we went to Italy for a summer, all of us, and lived this extraordinary outer life. I mean, it was so affluent and so beautiful, but I wasn't happy. And that juxtaposition didn't make any sense to me. So when I came home, I went into my first inner process. And as soon as I did that, I knew this was what I need to do for me. And that was my first soul selfish action.
That's interesting that you would recognize, you know, why am I not with all this, as you say, outer things going on that are so wonderful? I mean, the fact that you would tune in and say, why is this not working for me?
Well, it was like a dream, anybody's dream.
Yeah.
Well, I was living a dream, and yet the dream wasn't satisfying. It was satisfying in the day trips and the experiences, but internally, it wasn't satisfying.
So this inner search that you went into, what kinds of tools did you use to find yourself, to find what it was that was empty inside of you?
Well, most of it is about emotion. that as little children, we have feelings that we don't express, and we keep accumulating day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. We keep accumulating feelings that don't feel good. And it creates a barrier between our authentic selves and all these feelings. And until we begin to disperse these feelings as clouds in the sky, you don't see the sun and you don't see your soul.
So you may manifest in other ways like anger or
Sickness.
illness or something.
Yeah.
Now meditation, that was one of the things that you mentioned that helped you.
Yes.
Like tell us a little bit more about how that worked for your inner wisdom.
Well, meditation can be anything. It doesn't mean sitting quietly necessarily with your feet crossed.
Good, because
It
that's
can
an
be-
uncomfortable
it's
pose for
really,
me.
I still find it uncomfortable. It could be walking. It could be listening to music. It could be journaling. There are many ways to access your inner self.
But mostly you need to find out what's in there.
But you can't find out until you're quiet. So you need to be alone, and you need to find the way that works best for you. And for me, it began with journaling, where I would just begin with a day. Well, today I went shopping and this and this. But little by little, I would get into, and such happened with my husband, and that really didn't feel good. And then I would think about, well, why didn't it feel good? And what was it that didn't feel good? And I began to become more aware of what felt good to me and what didn't feel good to me. And I began to follow what felt good to me, which led to a divorce.
Oh, which you would think would be bad, but it was actually the best thing for you.
Well, it was the best thing for me, and I also had great concerns about the modeling that we were giving to our 4 children in terms of our relationship. And so I knew from my soul place that this was the best thing for all of us, and I knew that it would not be agreed upon by everyone, but in my heart, I knew that this was the best thing.
Did that prove to be true for
Yes,
your
it
kids
did.
and everything? Well, you do have lessons and insights that you share with parents in the book as well.
Yes.
Because I know a lot of people say, oh, we have to stay together for the children. But yeah, I kind of always said that it may not actually be the best. But again, that's an interesting lesson, something that worked for you, and you ended up raising those 4 children on your own. Now you've had a wonderful marriage with your best friend and
Yes.
a wonderful guy, Bob, who's here with us today for like, what, 30 years you've been married
30
now?
years,
Yeah.
yes. I was on my own for 10, and then came back in contact with Bob, and we've been married since then.
Wonderful.
30
And I
plus
tell you,
years.
your soul has not led you astray, I take it.
That's right. It will never lead anyone astray.
Oh, I love it. Okay, and where can people find Soul Selfish, Jane?
Soul Selfish can be found on Amazon.com, and I would so like you to go to my website, janewyker.com, and read more about Soul Selfish and me, and the many blogs that I've written that will support your sustaining happiness.
Because I think the support is very, the path might be difficult. It probably is difficult for most of us. So wonderful. Soul Selfish, fascinating read, and also good for your soul.
Good for yourself.
Jane Wyker, thanks so much for joining us today. Congratulations on your first book.
Thank you.
You think you have another one in you?
Well, I'm out here telling people about this one right now.
Okay, Soul Selfish, and we'll see if Jane comes up with another one, but so far, wonderful message. Again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Sandy.